Good morning and welcome to the Flexible Space Association's latest Workspace Wisdom webinar. I'm Jane Sartin, Executive Director of FlexSA, and we're joined today by Lesley Attwell, who is from one of the Flexible Space Association service provider members, Verlingue. So Lesley in a moment is going to take us through a presentation on employee benefits, a wide range of topics within that. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll pick those up at the end. So I'm going to just get Lesley's presentation up and leave her with you. Okay, over to you, Lesley.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. So I wanted to just quickly take you through a couple of trends that we're seeing in the industry, and then just a little bit about designing benefit packages, because I think that's just quite important for people to understand the various options that they have. First of all, just a little bit about us. So as Jane mentioned, I'm a senior employee benefit consultant at Verlingue, and we help clients, both very small and large corporates as well. So just to design their benefit packages, to redesign their benefit packages, and then also just help them with managing their packages going forward, because things don't always stay the same. So it's always good to revisit what employee benefits that you have in place and then just adjust accordingly. Now, the employee benefits can be quite a scary topic for some people. There's a load of different types of employee benefits out there, lots of different options within different packages. So it's really important to make sure you get the most appropriate thing for you. We are seeing employees more and more becoming more and more concerned about what their total remuneration looks like and not just salaries. We saw that particularly after COVID, a really big important emphasis on mental health and well-being, and lots of employees are looking for more flexibility within their working environment, as you can attest to, and also people looking for more flexibility around the benefits themselves and their provision. So the things to be aware of really with your benefits package, this might sound like the really most simplistic thing ever, is just to make sure that you know what you're trying to achieve with whatever benefits you are putting in place with your employees. So creating a budget is the first step, I would say to people always. We get a lot of companies coming to us, and I get an HRD coming in and she's going, oh, we want to do this, we want to put this in place, we want to put this in place. And then we put all these nice things together, and then she goes to the FD and he goes, no, that's not going to happen this year. You know, no possibility we can do that. Or we have people saying, I think we'll just be a bit cautious and do A, B, and C. And then they go, oh, actually, is that what it costs? Oh, actually, we can probably do a bit more than that. So important to just make sure that your budget fits in with your strategy and what you're trying to achieve as a company. I've seen some companies as well, very happy to just tick the box, do the most minimum things that they need to do, just want to provide the minimum. Other clients going, look, we give our employees a really good salary, we're going to do what we need to do, and then that's it in terms of benefits. And then we've got other companies who are really paternalistic, and they're like, no, what we really want to do is make sure we give quite a lot of support to all our employees, really concerned about their well-being. There's no right or wrong way of doing anything. It's just depends on what your strategy is and what you are looking to achieve. Now, the one thing to bear in mind in terms of the benefits is the pension, because pension is the one thing that you have to do. So that's sort of like a no-brainer in terms of benefits. Pension you have to have in place. You have to have, from one employee up, you have to have a pension in place for your employees. What we have seen, though, happens is that with automatic enrollment, companies set up pension plans, and someone just did that and just went online, did what they had to do, and then they've forgotten about it, or they've never really understood it. They're not quite sure exactly how it works, but they know they're putting people into that pension plan, and then they're sort of comfortable with that. My one thing I've seen is that people are not paying attention to the fact that there are some statutory communications that need to be sent out, and there is a kind of process every 3 years where people need to be put back into the pension if they're not in. So it's just, I always kind of say, just make sure that you're comfortable that how your pension is operating is appropriate, and you're ticking the boxes for legislative purposes, and just make sure it is correct. The other thing to consider is salary sacrifice. So that's just the way in which contributions are paid to the insurer and the way they are deducted from pay. So there are ways that you, depending on your demographic, there are ways that savings can be made by deducting your contributions in a different way. And that's savings for both the employer and the employee. So it's something to just bear in mind in terms of your pension provision. I've seen some companies as well saying, well, actually, what we might like to do is give our employees a bit more pension. We started off, we set our scheme up, we have this all in place, but what we'd like to do now is maybe give our people a little bit of a higher pension contribution structure. Can you just do some calcs around that? And then we've provided that information for them. So it's we've seen people doing different things with their pension. It's not just here's your pension, leave that in place, and that's all that you need to do with it. Always something to do with that you can change if you would like to. The Reward and Employee Benefits Association have recently done a survey on trends, and one of the trends is all around financial education, and they said financial well-being is really on people's radars at the moment from companies. So the pension is part and parcel of that. So an important thing to make sure that you communicate your pension appropriately with your staff, that they all understand what it is as well and how it works. It's a contribution they have to pay. It's a contribution that the company have to pay. So make sure your employees are familiar with their pension as well. In terms of the options, protection is the one we would always say is the kind of the base to start off with, because if you have some types of protection in place for your employees, that really helps with their sort of safety, well-being, knowing that they have something in place if something was to happen to them. So the life assurance plan is always one that we would suggest people start with. Life insurance is a very useful product. It's fairly cost effective from an employer perspective to set up relatively. So it's fairly straightforward, and people understand exactly what that means. It's, if something happens to me, some money will get paid to my dependents. The one good thing about having them within a company environment is that you don't have to, for most people, there's no requirement to do any kind of medical underwriting. So you can have a very small plan, but nobody needs to be underwritten. So you can literally just put people straight onto the plan. So it's quite nice and straightforward, easy to understand, and a very practical peace of mind benefit for employees. There are also, you can get guaranteed rates for a couple of years. So from budgeting perspective, you can be quite confident with what that plan is going to look like for you. But as I say, quite a straightforward benefit, and quite one that we see people putting in a lot of the time. The next second one that we see putting into place quite a lot is the group income protection plan. And the reason for the group income protection plan, not to be confused with critical illness, because we see that a lot of people go, oh, our CEO wants us to put a critical illness plan in place. But what they actually mean is the income protection. Critical illness just pays out a lump sum amount if somebody was to be diagnosed with a specific illness. So it's a really specific benefit, and it just pays out one lump sum amount. The group income protection is a lot more encompassing. So this will pay out salary if people were off for a long term. So anything longer than about 3 months, you can have a policy in place that will replace salary. So the insurance company will pay up to about, say, 75% of someone's salary, and they will pay that to the company, and that will go through payroll if somebody is off for a long time. I've seen a case where there was quite a senior person at a company. He did damage to his back, and he was off work for about 2 years. And because he was fairly senior in the company, he had quite a decent salary. And when he was off for 2 years, all he could get was the minimum sort of social benefits. And that created quite a bit of mental health issues for him because of the financial drain. And it did make the employer come to us and say, actually, this is the first time this has happened to us, where we've been in a situation where someone actually needs this type of help, really important benefit. We really feel that we need that in place. So I always say with income protection, it's one of those where people don't know they need it until they do, but it's a very important one. You also get support from the insurance company. So the insurance company provides a third-party support to trying to get people back to work, and just helping with the whole process between the employer and the employee. So we think that's a really important benefit to have. One of the other added things that the income protection benefits offer is one of the things we've seen arising is a lot more ancillary benefits around benefits. So you're seeing a lot more ancillary benefits being provided, not just the income protection, not just that salary replacement. You also see things like a GP service. GP service really important in this day and age, that as I can attest to trying to get doctor's appointments. It's really a useful one. You can literally phone up the GP service, go online, get an appointment within 24 hours normally, go in online, have your call, and then you can even get the prescription. I used one of the services from one of the providers, and then within about a few hours I'd had the call and I'd had the prescription, and I was taking the prescription that they had prescribed. So really useful to get your employees straight back to work really quickly, help solve any kind of their medical conditions. And the other support that's often included within this is an EAP support. So that's the emotional support helplines that the income protection schemes provide. These are with the mental health well-being issues that are in the workplace at the moment. We're seeing so much of this, and I'm sure you've seen it all over the press as well. A lot of people with mental health issues that they cannot get any support through the normal channels because the NHS is really inundated. So having this EAP support helpline, really important. And as I say, that's included within the product. So you don't pay any extra for that. It's included within the income protection. Now onto the health insurances, because we know the NHS, everybody's got a story about how long they're waiting in queues for things. But medical benefits from an employer perspective can be quite costly. So there are just various different types of benefits that you can look at, and not just private medical insurance. So the type of benefits that we are seeing coming through at the moment are things like the cash plans. We're seeing a lot of companies putting cash plans in place, and a lot of it's because it's a very tangible benefit. You can see immediately. You can go to the dentist, you can have your dental treatment done, you get your receipt, you take a snapshot of it, you upload it, and within 24 or 48 hours, the cash plan provider has put that money into your account. So it's a really, really practical, tangible benefit for employees. And as I say, we're seeing a lot of these more visible benefits being implemented. If people just want to go to the physio for 2 sessions, they don't want to go they don't need a whole triage situation. They just want to go for a couple of sessions. You can offset that with the cash plan as well. The cash plan also has things like discounts off health screening, which for some, when one gets to a certain age, that's quite an important benefit to have as well. So very useful to get some discounts off health screening. The GP helplines are also available through these types of benefits, and as well as things like private medical excesses. So if you have a private medical insurance plan and you have an excess on that product, you can have a health cash plan that can offset that for employees as well. So that's also sometimes we find what employees are doing as well, to just try and offset costs for the employees. And we found that that's a very well utilized product. So just something to bear in mind on that. The one thing about the cash plans as well is that everybody will pay the same. So there's a rate across the company. It's not an age-related benefit. So if 5 people join the cash plan or 30 people join that cash plan, the rate is going to stay the same. And I think that's useful to know for budgeting perspectives as well, that you know exactly how much that is. As with all things from the health plans, it is a P11D benefit, so it is a taxable benefit. So people will pay, your employees will still pay tax on the premium that the company pay on that. So just to be aware of it. Then what I call sort of a simple health plan, these are types of arrangements in the industry which are not just like a cash plan, but they function more like a private medical plan, where people can still get diagnostics done, you can still get therapies done, you can still get referrals through your GP, so you can still get all of those types of things, but it's just at a far more affordable pricing structure than for private medical insurance. And that is a lot to do with the fact that cancer cover is removed from that. So these types of arrangements are also more for everyday types of treatments that people need to have, but people need to be referred to, and they can actually go for surgeries and having that type of product, that type of surgeries, that kind of treatment that is required. But you still do see that there is a straight line costing process as well. So if you have, same thing, if you have 20 people or 30 people on that plan, that cost stays the same. So that's also useful for pricing, and as I say, also a P11D-able type of benefit. Then if we look at the private medical insurance, so the private medical insurance, as we're seeing it more and more, that's becoming more the first line of defense in terms of people needing any treatment, as I say, because the NHS is a bit inundated. So we are seeing a lot of private medical schemes being taken up, and we're seeing a lot of utilization within private medical schemes. And I would say the trend in the industry is definitely one of more private medical insurance. And a lot of, I think, especially with senior hires, there is an expectation that there will be a private medical insurance plan in place for them if they were to join a company. So the good thing about the private medical plans as well now is that there are so many different options that can be taken. So instead of employers just going, oh, private medical insurance, that's going to be really costly, there are ways and means at which those can be structured. The good thing about the private medical insurances is they are supplementary to the NHS. So there are certain things that are excluded within private medical insurances. Things like chronic conditions aren't generally covered, but you do have the different underwriting options, which means you can have people covered from day one for any kind of types of issues that they have, or you can have sort of some restrictions and cover with people with existing medical concerns, or have had existing medical treatment before. So there are ways and means in which you can structure those different plans. They also tend to have very good cancer covers and very comprehensive cancer covers. I'd say the top three things that we see with medical claims are musculoskeletal, cancer claims, and then obviously the mental health support. And generally with all these insurances for the private medical schemes, you will find that without having to go for GP referrals, those three things, people can just contact the insurance company directly without needing a referral if they're concerned about any of those three issues. So it's a really good, easy, straightforward process for employees to use, and really gives lots of peace of mind around any kind of concerns that they might have. There's also the mental health. I mentioned those mental health, the therapies are covered in there as well. Therapies, that's being all your sort of your physiotherapy type covers as well. And you can also then get dental and optical cover with some of the providers as an add-on. The virtual GPs are included in those types of plans as well, and things like gym discounts. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not just about giving the one product, it's about all the ancillary benefits that you can get around that product. And that's why it's quite important to be able to communicate that to your employees, because they just go, oh, there's this cash plan, or there's this private medical insurance. I'm really young and strong. I won't probably need that, as I have heard before. I probably won't need that at all. So I'm not going to bother with joining that the private medical insurance. But then when it's been communicated to them with, but you also get gym discounts. You could quickly phone the insurance company with musculoskeletal things if you need to. And they're like, oh, actually, we think we will join that. So it's important how you communicate any kind of supplementary benefits that sit on the periphery of the actual plans themselves. One thing to be in mind about the private medical insurances is they can actually often be age-related premiums. So if you've got companies where they have, say, less than 200 employees, generally less than 200 employees, you are going to find that it's going to be an age-related premiums attached to this plan. So depending on who joins the plan, they will have their own individual cost associated with them, and the costs associated with those benefits will also be, you can include obviously your dependents on those covers, and they will just be the cost will be a percentage of that original employee's cover level. So just be aware of that. It works slightly differently to things like some of the other some of the other medical products. So this is the one thing we do see where every year we're seeing quite a number of increases in that private medical insurance, as I say, because they're being so well utilized. So because it's being really well utilized, really important to make sure that you have the appropriate structure for your employees, but also making sure that you're keeping the cover at a certain level where you're not going to get too many claims. So it is that balancing act where you make sure you have enough cover for your employees, but just make sure that the claims are not getting really out of hand, which means that you're going to get quite big increases on premiums. So always want to consider quite carefully how you structure it, but definitely a worthwhile benefit for employees. So those were the main topics I wanted to cover in terms of the basics. There are obviously other things like, we're seeing some of the trends for some of the bigger companies are making sure that technology platforms, having a technology platform in place, because those are quite very, very useful if you've got a big number of employees coming and going, and you want to make sure that you have something nice and simple for them to use. It's a good communication tool as well. So technology platforms, absolutely useful for bigger companies. For smaller companies, not so practical. So you then want to make sure that you have products where, so for example, your pension now has an app, your insurance company has an app, people can go in online there, they can go in, they can use the app, they can see their information. Some of the private medical products as well, they have an app included, so people can go in and do what they need to do through those apps. So another thing, important to communicate to the employees what options that they have. So if technology platform is not practical for you, it's making sure you signpost to the insurance companies so they get the best kind of user experience that they can. So the main thing I would say to note is there are also loads of different other benefits and add-ons, but a lot of them are size related. So if you're not a big corporate company, it's sometimes you can't access certain types of products within the insurance industry, and that's literally just because of how the insurances are set up. Some of them, though, you as a smaller company, you are gaining access to things like that private the GP service and the access to gym discounts and all of those types of things. Even if you're a small company, you are still getting access to some of those benefits if you take up one of the other types of benefit arrangements. So just a practical thing there to make sure that no matter how big or how small you are, there are ways and means in which you can structure your benefits appropriately, and make sure, and the things to take into consideration, make sure that you have a strategy in place, know what you're trying to achieve with your benefits. It's important that if you're wanting to make sure that you want ESG is really important to you. You want to make sure that you're doing something appropriate with that with your employees. Make sure that's taken into consideration when you design your benefits. And make sure that your budget is appropriate as well. Make sure that you can take into consideration any of the kind of increases that might be coming in the next year or so. And then in terms of your design, there's the initial design of the benefits, and then just monitoring that going forward and making sure it's still fit for purpose. Because in a year or two, your demographic might look totally different, or you've had feedback from your employees. You can, if you wanted to, you could do things like surveys and ask your employees how they feel about their benefits. So just the types of things that we take into consideration. We've recently just implemented a different benefit and restructured a benefit for a client based on their employee feedback. So always important to just keep monitoring and keep looking and making sure that your benefits are appropriate. And as I mentioned earlier as well, all about the communication. Make sure the employees know what they've got. Make sure that they know everything is signposted. There was a time when you could say, well, let's put the EAP helpline number on the water cooler, because it's somewhere really close that if people are really in a bit of crisis and they just really need to speak to someone, that number is easily accessible. So not so easy when people are not in one place all the time, but just have it really easily signposted on your portals. So anything that you can do to just make it practical and useful for your employees is also obviously very helpful. So that was just a whirlwind summary of what we're seeing and what we're seeing in terms of design strategy. So I wondered if anybody had any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Lesley. I think a lot of information packed in there, which I'm sure will be useful for people. So we've got a few moments if anyone wants to add questions into the chat box, but perhaps just to kick things off, you covered things for companies of all sizes, I think, in your presentation. Is there a minimum number of employees who can get access to company benefits?
Yes, good question. So you'll find with pensions, if you've got one employee, you need to have set up a pension plan. So literally from pensions, from one employee, a pension plan will be available for you to choose. In terms of other benefits, so things like your risk and your healthcare benefits, those types of benefits, you need to have at least 2 or 3 people, depending. So one person, difficult to get a corporate benefit for it, but you could potentially still get that privately. But with normally about 3 people, I would say, is a minimum to consider.
And can you segment your employees and provide different levels of cover? I think you did touch on this a bit in your presentation, but is that generally okay to do? No.
Yes, absolutely. We see it all the time. So even things like the pension, which is obviously the legislative requirement, you can have a certain demographic with a certain type of contribution structure, and then you can have different demographic with a different contribution structure, and they can still all fall within the same scheme. So it's not like you have to then put this with a different provider and move plans around. You can literally have it within the same scheme. And that'll work exactly the same way with all the other products. So things like the private medical, you can have different criteria for different groups as well if you would like to.
Okay. And a question that's just come in. You mentioned the tax implications for the health cash plan. Are there tax implications for the other benefits mentioned?
Yes, so any of the medical benefits will have tax implications. So any of the medical benefits are considered taxable benefits. And employees will pay tax based on the employer, whatever the employer is sponsoring. We often see with the medical benefits that it's split. So you'll have an employer sponsored, let's say, for the employees, their premium will be employer sponsored. But if they have dependents added on, then they can just pay that through payroll. So we often see that kind of split. But then that employer sponsored amount, you will still pay the taxable benefit on. And that works for any of the health arrangements. In terms of the risk insurance or things like life assurance, no taxable implications generally on that. There's no tax implications on the payouts on that. Depending if it's over £1 million potentially, but generally there's no implications on that. It's a tax-free lump sum payment. Income protection, the tax implications are if once that salary goes through payroll, so people will just pay their tax and national insurance in the usual way going through the payroll process, but there's no tax implications on any of the premiums. That's all company sponsored.
Okay, thank you. So perhaps as a final question, I think it still can be hard to recruit, it can be hard to retain staff. So I'm sure there are many prospective employees that are looking at what companies are going to be offering them. What's particularly trending in employee benefits at the moment?
I'll say definitely wellness, health, mental wellness. That's definitely one of the big things. And also, ironically, we're looking at so as long as there's some kind of, the first thing people say to me is we need something that's going to support our employees with mental well-being. And as I've touched on, a lot of those products include a kind of mental health, mental well-being type of element within their products. So you're often going to find that sort of as a theme running through all the products these days because of that particular situation. The one thing is, one of the interesting trends that came out was all about financial well-being, and it's really, and that's what I think I mentioned that earlier. That's what we're seeing is a really big important thing for employers that they are looking to communicate. I think with the cost of living increases, they're really wanting to make sure that that's something that's people understand their financial situations. But the irony then is also that we're seeing what's trending a lot is that employers are not looking to decrease their benefit offerings. You know, one of the surveys that was done, the employers are actually looking to keep the benefits that they have, even though costs are increasing. They're looking to keep benefits that they have already, at least keep the benefits they have already, maybe just redesign them slightly. They're not looking to try and curtail benefits, which I thought was quite interesting as well. That is really, really important for employers. It's really high on their agenda.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Lesley. That's been really helpful. We'll make the recording of this presentation available a bit later today on our YouTube channel. So if there were quite a lot of details in there, so if anyone wants to catch up on some of those, they'll be able to see that. Just as a final note from me, we've got our conference and exhibition coming up on the 14th of May, and I know that Verlingue have got a stand in our exhibition area there, so people will be able to go and find out a bit more about the services that the company offers and and talk to people as well. And hopefully we'll see lots of people at that event. It would be great to see as many people as possible there in person, but if you can't come to London on the 14th of May, we have got online tickets available as well. And then we will have more Workspace Wisdom webinars coming up. We haven't got anything scheduled in the listings right now, but we've got things in the planning. So keep an eye for these and other FlexSA events in our events page on our website. So thank you very much and have a good rest of the day, everybody. And thank you, Lesley.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.